Hey there, it's your host Dan. We're up to part 16 of the C4 front end collision repair that I'm doing myself, DIY. And today I'm going to be doing the body work on the hood and also the front bumper. And this is kind of new to me. I've never done body work on a car before. But I do understand the steps, and I've kind of got the book smart, so I just don't have the hands-on experience. But I've done some things like, polishing plastics. So hopefully that's going to give me a good insight on how this is done and produce a good result when all is said and done. So now this hood here, this color is the factory original color. This right here is from the body shop. They gave me about a 5-minute demonstration with their air sander. This is 80 and then 180. But this is the original paint. And we can see here where this is clear coat, and then this is the base coat, and then this is going to be the primer on top of the gel coat. The hood has some very fine checking in the paint. I don't think it's going to be good to paint over the top of this, just in case it creates any kind of future problems. So this is going to have to be all stripped down to pretty much look like this on the hood. And on the bumper, this is the factory original white color right here, minus the clear coat. I thought this was painted over, like around here in the belt molding, but the clear coat had kind of delaminated it and make it look like another layer. But this is just the original white, and somebody painted a stripe on here, which is just kind of thick. So I'm going to want this taken down, probably all the white taken off. All the green's got to come off the hood, and one of my headlight doors is red, so I'm going to sand that all down, just in case if I get chips down in the road in the future, I don't have like, little red chips, little green chips, little white chips. I'm going to take all this paint off, so that way I'm going to start with a good base foundation for when the primer goes on. Now that only took a minute there for them to do that at the body shop with their air tools. I have an air compressor at home, but it's one of those small little pipsqueak guys, and there's no way it's going to run an air sander. You need something kind of sizable as far as a compressor to be able to sustain the needs of a air sander. I went out and I actually bought something a little different. Let's take a look at that. This is what I picked up, and this is the Hercules variable speed random orbital sander. Hercules. I'm pretty sure this is the equivalent, like a knockoff of the DeWalt. And I was going to go buy the DeWalt, and I looked on HD's website, and nobody near me sells it. So, hey, here I am right back to Harbor Freight buying my tools. But I bought this one, the Hercules. This is a little bit of a better one. They also have one they sell that's a Bauer. I think this one might be a little better. The switch feels a little better. It's 3 amps instead of 2.8. And also, too, when you pull off the dust filter here, take that apart, your shop vac can go right in the end of this, and that's going to be awesome for me with dust collection, because I know this is going to make a ton of dust. The dust filter on the Bauer over there at Harbor Freight, it felt just kind of real, just cheesemo. And I'm not sure if the vacuum fits in it. I'm sure you could make it fit, but if you took the filter off, there were a couple holes which you'd have to plug up too. I'm not sure it's really designed for that, even though you could. This one is. So this is a sander I'm going to be using to strip most of that paint off. I also picked up some, this is Velcro sanding discs. They just attach on the back. I got some 80, some 120 and 220. I've also got some strip sandpaper there in the back. 80, 120, and 240. I've got some Dura-Blocks coming. I ordered a set of those. They'll be here in a couple days. And I was going to buy one of those respirator masks, and they didn't have any. So the best I could do for now is some surgical masks, just so I'm not breathing the dust. I know it's not ideal, but you got to do what you got to do. So this is what I'm going to use to start sanding the car down. I've already got an 80 disc on it. Let's get it plugged in and get working. Now that I've never used this particular type of sander before, it's going to be best and wise to test it out first. So that's why I'm going to try it out on my old hood, just so I get the quick hang of it, so I'm not messing anything up on the other hood. I've got it plugged into the vacuum, so I'm just going to switch it on. I'm going to start it out about speed 4 and see how that does as far as variable speed, see how I like it, and get the hang of it on this panel so it does better on the other one. let's check that out, see how that's doing. Yeah, it's going right through it, it looks like. Well, after about 5 minutes, I think I got the hang of this. Pretty easy to use, this sander here, and this is right where I want to get it to. This is the primer right over the factory gel coat. This hood's been painted twice. It was originally black and then got painted again black. I can see it here from the clear coat going to the base coat, and here's our primer underneath, but then it goes black again, and then you can see the primer ring under that. Then it goes down to the factory primer. So it should be easier on the other hood because I don't have two coats and it's not going from black to black. I got color over there. It's going to be a lot easier, but this is right where I want to get it. It only took about 5 minutes to get the hang of the sander here. It works best on some of the higher speeds. And it seems like the vacuum attachment hooked up to it does take care of, geez, probably 90-95% of the dust. I haven't even put a mask on yet, but I'm going to start wearing one once I start stripping down most of the hood over there. So I'm going to switch over to the other hood and start getting that old paint stripped off. Okay, it's time to do the real panel now, and I'm set up over here. I also took a moment just to tape up the gap here on the front of the nose and back tape around the headlight, because it's not that I'm painting anything right now, it's I don't want the dust to fall in those cracks. Although this hose does a really good job being hooked up to the vacuum cleaner as far as keeping the dust down. But if you never used one of these before, it's pretty simple. You're just going to put a little bit of light pressure on the top. You don't press down on it. You want the tool to do the work. You don't want to rock it back and forth. So I'm going to flip on the vacuum, get started, and I'm going to knock out this little patch right here, right next to what was done from here over to the headlight. That was a few minutes with 80. Enlarged that spot out quite nicely. I'm really liking the way this looks, and I'm liking the way that sander works. And you always want to keep it moving. In case you don't know, you never want to just keep it in one spot. But it's doing a really good job, and I'm just going to continue on busting all this old paint off with the 80 grit. So what's really interesting is this right here. I thought the hood was one layer of factory paint, and it is in some places. Like, you know, down here it's just, you can see it transition right from the paint to the factory primer. Right here I can see it goes from the paint, and then it looks like it's got that little bit of a skim coat of Bondo under it, then a primer, and then there's the original factory paint under that. So something must have happened to this hood, and somebody must have spot fixed it, maybe right in here, somewhere right in here in this area, and they blended it in. That's why I'm seeing two layers and a slight bit of skim coat Bondo, and then as you move over to the side, like right here, you don't see that at all. All I see is the one layer of paint. So a little more effort to get this off. I'm not sure if I'm just going to leave this here, or I'll just totally take this down and put in my own if it's a low spot. Also right here too, it's, you know, since I'm going down to the factory primer, right here I got a little bit of a cut through, and when I feel right here, I can feel a low spot, so I know that there's going to be a little bit of filler needed right here in this area. Over by the headlights, it's easier to kind of cut through around the edges, but you know, I'm being as careful as I can to take it just down to the factory primer and not get down to the gel coat when you start seeing the white. So I'm finding new tips and tricks as I go while I'm doing this. Here I want to sand this part here, and I don't want to hit the bumper cover and round off the top of the edge. I could do it by hand, but it just takes too long. My power sander here, I'd have to say, does the work 5 times faster than doing it by hand. So here I'm just going to take a piece of sandpaper pack. I'm going to stick it in that gap there, and now I can sand right up to this, and I don't have to worry about hitting the bumper cover. There, this groove that was cut in the back of the sandpaper pack, if I didn't have that in there, that would be shaved off the edge of the bumper cover. And every now and then, this sandpaper is going to pick up like a chunk that's going to be fused to it, which you'll see when you're sanding. It starts making a little swirly mark, so I always try to pay attention to those and pick those out. Make sure that I'm sanding a nice flat even surface. And I got to get the headlight around the perimeter here of the edge, just the very inner edge. And I'm going to use one of the old discs here, and I'm just going to cut it down. And I'm just going to do it by hand very lightly. I'm going to go around the edges with the 80 grit and just get the paint portion of it taken down. I also got my light ready here so I can see as good as I can because of the color. Once it comes off, it goes to black, and then it goes to the gel real fast. So I gotta minimize the burn throughs to the gel while I'm taking this layer of paint off, and any little last bit of light helps for you to see better. I noticed something too. Every time I'm looking at this, I see these Arby's and all these nice roast beef sandwiches, and damn it, this is making me hungry. Gotta do something about this. There, that's better. Let's put something on here really quick, so I don't want to stop working and go eat and then not feel like working anymore. This will be much better visually while I'm going. There, that's much better. I can still see the Arby's on the bottom. I gotta cover that up. Okay. Feels like summer. Shit, at the rate I'm going, this car's gonna be ready for winter. Okay. And then, like I said, I'm just going to use my 80 really lightly into the corners so I can see where that paint is coming off. And I don't really want to press too hard. I just want to let the sandpaper do the work, just so I can break that paint coating off of there. I'm going to switch to my little sanding block with the 180 on it, because sometimes I feel like I'm just gouging the edges a little too much with the 80. This might take just a little longer, but it'll be a little smoother here. It'll be a little less time to prep. Yeah, this is working, I think, a little better. Takes about the same amount of time. Yeah, the block's working a little better here. So this is what I get doing it the first time. It's like a learning experience. You do it one way and you learn how that's done. If it takes too long, try to find some way of doing it faster, some way of doing it different. There's always more than one way to get to the end result, but it's really the end result that's really what matters. So if you don't put the right effort, the right steps in from the get-go, obviously it's not going to turn out as well. But you don't want to get all the way to the end and then be scratching your head saying to yourself, well, why does it look like that? Well, gee, I wonder why. Most of it is all going to be in the sanding. It's all going to be in the prep work, as far as how good that paint's going to look at the very end. And then, like right here, I've got a chip in that I'm going to have to fill that in. But same thing, I'm just going to sand around that as best I can, sand into it a little bit, so that way we're going to get the best grip when I apply the putty. Well, I ordered this and it showed up in the mail today. Since I elected myself to do the body work on my car, I am going to need this. This is a Dura-Block 7-piece kit It's got a bunch of blocks all in different sizes. And one thing, check this out, this picture here. We got this crazy tattoo anime chick with her eyeball lollipop. And look at the crazy clown here. Isn't he nutty? Are you scared of him? Bah! Let's get it open. We don't need no instructions. It's basically just a bunch of blocks. There's, let's see, 3 blocks. This is a 6-inch block. They're pretty stiff. Put the sandpaper on this way. It's a nice smooth surface. Looks like we got a 6. I think this is a 10 and this is a 16. We got a round one here. Just a little bit of bend. You can wrap your sandpaper around this for curved areas. Here's a flatter block. Like some people use a paint stick, but I don't have to use that now that I got this block. And let's see what else we got. Here's another block, just a little bit shallower. It's pretty stiff. There's not that much bend in it. It's just for areas just so you can razor off the surface and get it perfectly flat. So I'm going to be needing this. I'm glad I ordered this. This was 50 bucks to the door. It's going to probably be well worth it. And I think I'm going to cut out this picture here and put it up on the wall in my garage. Look at that crazy clown. Isn't he nutty? I'm 2 days in on sanding. I've got to strip down the hood here completed, across the top of the bumper cover, around the fog light. The inside I had to do by hand. That's kind of tedious, takes a long time. I used the DA here to go across the front face, and I'm changing up kind of the way I do things because, you know, it's a learning curve for me, and there's no right or necessarily wrong way. It's whatever works best for you. And I'm finding out for me, for instance, like on the bumper cover, I was using a sanding pad, like a little block. It was 180, so I thought, but I must have been getting worn down because I grabbed a disc that was 220 off my palm sander and it started cutting a lot better. So I really started with 220 on the bumper, did the top of the bumper with the palm sander, which made it really nice and flat, almost like 320 by hand or maybe even 400 by hand, that it left the finish after I did it very, very lightly with the palm sander. So I'm starting at 220 on the bumper, so there won't be any real deep scratches like 80 or 180, anything like that. So if I'm at 220 on the bumper, I can jump to 320 and really only have to 2-step sand the bumper and bam, be done. It takes a long time to try to like level this paint down, you know, pretty much even to the bumper, but I think it's worth it in the end because it'll save me less in sanding. On the hood here where I started with 80 grit, what I think I'm going to do a little different is, before I was kind of going for almost maximum paint removal, trying to almost get it all off 100%. I think I'm going to leave maybe about 5% of it, so that when I switch to a finer grit, there's a little bit of meat still left, where that way I can just get right down to the top of the primer instead of taking all the paint off 100%. If I go to a finer grit, I'm going to start getting into that primer layer. I don't want to get to the gel coat. I think I'll be okay with what I've done so far, but I'm going to change it up and just leave a little bit more meat as far as from the 80 when I go to a finer grit. The headlight doors here, which go on the hood, I have those done. Those are actually primer ready right now. Let's take a close up and take a look at those. Here's one of the headlight doors. This let's see, this one, okay, this was the red one. This had been painted twice, so there would have been basically four layers of paint on it already. And if I would have painted over the top, I would have added 2 more, there would have been 6 layers. So this has all been taken down. The black here is the factory primer. And a little bit of a kind of, you know, went through it right here, but it's perfectly flat and even right here. Let's see, the red paint, I started with 80 with that and just took off that outer layer of paint, but once I got down to getting close here to the panel, I did the same thing. I did 220 here with the DA, and then I did 320 by hand, and I also used a red Scotch Brite, which is about 400, and scuffed the surface of that. And I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out. I could see before when I was holding it out the garage door at a certain angle in the light, I could see the reflection in it. You'd have to hold it at a really weird angle, but you can see it when it like looks wet, and it looks like it's pretty much straight. So this is ready to go for primer. The back side, I just scuffed that real quick with the red Scotch-Brite too, so this just gonna get a quick shot of black here on the back, but the important side here is done. All the edges have been smoothed out. So this is ready to go for primer, and I got the other side, the headlight door, done, so I have 2 pieces ready to go for primer. I just got 5 more to do. 2 of them very large pieces, but that's what I'm doing. I'm just going to keep continuing sanding on. And oh, another thing I learned is that my sander that I bought, that little Palm Hercules sander, it cracks me up. The pad on it is kind of rigid. It's almost like a Dura-Block. It works good on some of the flatter surfaces. If you're a little bit convex, it's okay, but if you're a little concave, that's when things start going a little weird. And when I tried over here, I could see it right away that if I continued, it would have messed things up badly. But it only hit the, hit the top layer of the paint, so I'm nowhere even near down to the primer over here. But what I found is that I'm going to order a little pad that goes in between my sanding pad and the sander itself, that gives it like a little cushion, and hopefully that's going to be able to allow me to get into those slightly curved areas. And I'm going to try it, see how that works along the sides, the very edges. If that doesn't work out, I'll just eventually do it by hand, but I'm just going to keep continually going around the car until I get basically every last little bit of paint off this hood and off this bumper. And now I have 3 full days of sanding completed. It's taken me a really long time to do this. I've got the whole passenger side pretty much complete. I know the pros probably would have this done already, but I'm a beginner at this, so I have to treat myself as a novice and go as slow as I can. I don't want to get burn throughs from the primer. Inevitably, you get them here and there. It's usually around the edges, but any of the flat surfaces, I pretty much don't have hardly any at all. Now, this just came the other day. This is called an interface pad, and I would no way in the world have been able to do all these swoopy corners and edges and where it dips a little bit with the Hercules sander. There's no way I could have done it out of the box. If I would have used it out of the box, like for instance on the side of the fender here, it would have wrecked this panel in an instant. Definitely need this. All this is a piece of foam, and it's got the Velcro, both sides on it, so you stick it on the bottom of the sander, sandpaper on this, and it gives you a little bit of cushion, so when I'm using the sander I can kind of rock it just a little bit and not worry about digging in really hard, because the foam pad it'll allow for it. The little edges there on the middle of the hood where the hood scoop is, I was able to kind of just go in with the sander and get that too. So this is crucial. I really wish I would have started with this, or this really should have came in the box with the sander. I mean, they give you 1 piece of sandpaper. I mean, seriously, it should have came with this. I mean, it's a sander. People are not just going to sand like doors with it, flat surfaces. You need something like this. This to me is like a $2 part. I mean, what is it? It's a couple pieces of Velcro and some foam in between. So I'm kind of disappointed that this didn't come in the box, nor does Harbor Freight sell anything like this. We had to order it from that A site, which I really don't like ordering from. But this was essential, and this helped me get all this done. And I'm going to move over and I'm going to do the driver's side, and I'm going to get all that paint taken off. Day 4. Okay, I got another fresh 80 grit disc on the pad, and I'm going to do just this corner of the hood right here. That's pretty much about what 1 disc will do before it starts wearing down. I also just dumped my vacuum cleaner now for the 2nd time. The dust that this creates will plug up the filter pretty fast, and when it does, the holes in the bottom here, which act as your vacuum cleaner, stop working as effectively. So you want to make sure you control as much dust as you can, so keep the vacuum clean. And also too, when I use this tool, normally I am using one of the upper speeds, like 5 if not 6, when I'm first starting the panel to do like kind of like the mow down, and then once I got a good chunk of it off, the clear coat is going to haze up, and then after that you're going to start to see the color, and it'll be really quick, and it'll go right down to the factory black primer. So I'm going to use a high speed for taking it down, and then once I get close I'm going to switch to a lower speed, which will help me around the curves here and towards the edges, so I don't get too aggressive and then all of a sudden start taking off too much in one spot where I don't want to. So high speed for the takedown, low speed for the finish work. Here we go. I'm going to get going. Let's see how long it takes me to get just this little portion done. I gotta stop. Holding that at a weird angle like that's making me sweat, and some of the sweat just was about to roll off the tip of my nose onto the panel, but I'm pretty close to what a section of just about what I said I was gonna do, with the exception of just a little bit right here. And I'm guessing that just took me, I don't know, 20-25 minutes maybe. I mean, it's going really slow. I'm trying to leave just a little bit on some of these darker spots. You know, the old paint, I always keep winding up taking off too much. I keep telling myself, leave some meat on the bone. So, but I'm nowhere near busting through right here. This is nice and flat. Okay, so now that disc that was on the sander, I can feel it. It's just not cutting as aggressively as it once was. Pretty much I have to go get a brand new one now and slap that on, which is why sometimes after I use them for a while, that's when I'll kind of come in and start doing the curves and up over the edge. And towards the end there, I was just on speed just on speed 1. I mean, I was just barely had the thing operating, and if I press it down at some certain angle, the pad is not rotating, it's just doing that fine vibration. So I'm just pretending here like I'm polishing the car. I mean, I know how to polish a car, and I just pretend like I'm polishing the old paint off. So I got a little burn through right here. Let me see if I feel that. Maybe. We'll see if that needs any filler. But I'm trying to minimize them as much as possible. And let's see here. I gotta be real careful when I get close to this edge with the DA, because it will bite right into this edge here. And the very, very edge of the wheel, well, I won't do that with the DA. I will do that by hand, because the DA just chews too much into the edges. So I got that section done for now. It'll take a half an hour. I got another portion of the hood back, which I'm guessing is probably, oh boy, a couple more hours, and I'm pretty close to having the hood completely stripped in 80. Also too, when I go to do these sides here on the wheel wells, I will not use 80. I will jump to 220 to do these because I don't want to gouge into them, and it takes a lot longer for me to do it with 220. But the next time I go over the car, you know, step up from 80 and go through the grits, I hopefully won't be leaving behind any 80 grit scratches in an area I might miss. And I'm doing this also in other areas too, where if I can't get it with the DA, I'm gonna 220 it down so that that area is like one step ahead of everything else, and hopefully there won't be any deep gouges or scratches that I miss that show up in the end. Now right here along the edge where I was sanding with the DA, tiny little burn through right here to the jowl, and same thing here on this side, and I've still got some paint in between, so I didn't want to try and get the pad in there and take this off because I'm just going to start leveling this down even more. And normally I would use those blocks, and I've used a couple of the blocks already in a couple spots, but right here where I want to get in between to get that, you know, extra paint off, I'm going to use a 80 disc, and I try not to finger sand anything, but I'm just going to barely press down like in between here, barely, and just pretty much letting the sandpaper do the work, like drag across the surface. And I do not want to, here, I'll work it from the other side because I don't want to start working into this right here. Very, very lightly. Once again, sandpaper itself, the weight of it's just kind of doing the work. I just want to make sure all this crappy ass paint's off because I don't want to leave this under a coat of new paint, because the way this stuff just chapped all over the hood, you know, it's 30 plus year old paint, and I mean, I don't want to have anything over the top of this, have any kind of weird reaction, any kind of thing like that. So I'd like to get it all off if possible. Okay, real light, real light. Almost gone. Almost gone. Yeah, I've noticed too, if you use like an 80 on a block, it will scratch a lot deeper than the DA. It seems like when the 80's on the DA, it's kind of, I get the same result, maybe on a block, maybe about 150 as far as the scratches it leaves. And I want to try to leave hardly any scratches here at all. I just want to get the remains of that green paint off. Okay. I'll just go super light over that surface. Okay, and there we go. I got in between these, and I didn't widen these out anymore, and I didn't leave any really deep gouge scratches by using just the disc itself. Moving on to getting this section complete on the hood, I added some tape here on just the edges, especially here on the door here. Definitely don't want any accidents happening, or happen to have the pad a certain way and you're not watching one edge and you tilt it down and it hits the door, creating another problem that we don't need to fix. That's the thing with using the DA. You've always constantly got to be aware of pretty much what you're doing when you're doing the finer work. You really got to keep an eye on, you know, an edge of a pad and which way you're going. Sometimes when I'm not getting the result that I kind of want, it's not going my way, I'll move over to the flatter areas where I'm doing that mow down and just kind of go back and forth. You can kind of do that with almost without thinking about it. But when you get into the finer areas and you're really just, you've burned through the clear and you've just got through the color, you have to be really conscious of how you're moving it around. So that's my tip for using the DA. I'm going to go ahead and bang this section of the hood out. Okay, I'm taking a break from sanding the car. I think that was like, wow, 15 hours straight. I mean, that was all through the night. But you get that adrenaline kick going and you just keep on going like the Energizer Bunny. But I was getting too stinky, so I had to stop and take a shower. I had a chance to sit down and take a look at the little pamphlet that came with the Dura-Block here. And I didn't realize when I ordered it at first, but they make these in two different versions. There's this one here, which is the flat block, which has nothing on the other side. And they also make this in a hook and loop for the sandpaper. I'm going to get the sandpaper where it just sticks on the back of this block. I don't think I want a hook and loop because then it might not be quite as flat. At least that's my theory. I don't know. What do I know, right? So, glad I got this. Use this a little bit here. And, you know, I checked out this. I'm like, once I was like, realized they had hook and loop and then whatever the pressure sensitive application or peel stick, whatever PSA means. It's just the paper that has a adhesive on the one side and you stick it on this block. So I just double checked my rolls here I bought from Harbor Freight, and this does not say PSA, so I bought the wrong stuff. And this says it has a cloth backing, which is not going to stick to these blocks. So it looks like I'm going to have to go return these and go get the correct stuff. No big deal. We found that out sooner or later. But I thought you might find it interesting. You can get these blocks in a hook and loop if you so choose. It's a pretty cool set, and I'm really glad I bought it. I could probably use this for a multitude of things in the future. Scaring people with the crazy psycho clown. I now have the old finish removed using the 80 grit on the palm sander, and wow, that kind of took a while. I mean, it was really slow going, but I'd rather play it safe. I don't want to try to get down to that gel if at all possible. And the old finish is about 98% removed. I left just a trace of it for the 220 to kind of grab into and do its thing. The front bumper cover, today I spent most of my time doing some of the areas you kind of don't see, like in the fog lights, the up underneath on both sides, and right here in the license plate area. Wow, that took 4 or 5 hours pretty much by hand, you know, using some of the Dura-Blocks where I can. But here in the license plate, it was painted over. So you got 4 layers of paint, the base clear, or the white and the black on here. But I've got that pretty much done. I still have to do a little bit up at the top here. Took the stripe from underneath the car off with the palm sander. Did just a little bit underneath here too. I'm going to remove all the white underneath. And let's see, over here on the side where the marker light is, I'm going to make sure that I take down that edge. There's a little bit here on the left side I still have to do, but I'm going to take down that edge so I get a nice clean surface. That way it's not double painted and the lights have a problem fitting in their slot where they're supposed to be. Also, I got a little itch to see how the bumper cover is going to turn out, how good I can get it, because once again, I've never done body work before, but you know, I kind of, you know, I've done some plastic and this really isn't all that different. And I took this little section right here, which the bumper cover I started in 220, no less than 220, even though it was a little more time consuming, but I didn't want to put any deeper gouges in this, and because I really don't want filler on here because the bumper cover flexes a little bit. But anyway, so we have 220 to start with. That's all over here. Pretty much everywhere on the whole bumper cover is done in 220. Then I used this block over here, 320, did this little area, and then I used a red Scotch-Brite and went over that too, and then also very lightly. So it's probably somewhere around 500-ish maybe in this area, and it looks really good. I mean, it's It's super silky smooth. Let me grab my light down because I'm itching to see how this is gonna look. I sprayed some water on it, but the water just didn't really want to sit there and play nice. So when I use my pull down light, and I'm on the other side where the camera is, and I'm using this weird angle using the light, I can almost use it like one of those PDR things where it's like the stripe. And when I'm sliding it down the front bumper, if there was any distortions or waves in the front bumper, I would be able to see the reflection, the line from the LED lights kind of waver and flicker, and I don't. It really looks dead on straight. I'm really surprised. So I don't know, I guess I am doing it right. I mean, I'm pretty excited now. So this is what it's gonna wind up looking like. Alright, I got a lot accomplished. I think it's gonna take me another day or maybe 2 full days to get this bumper cover completely ready, where it's 100% ready for primer, where it's all the equivalent of this corner here, which is about 500. I still have to remove a lot more paint underneath. There's some nooks and crannies along the top edges and sides I've got to get to. I think 2 more days. That's what I'm going to work on so that I get this piece kind of done and ready and out of the way. Next video, we'll start working on the hood. There's some chips around the edges of the headlights, the very corners of the hood and the wheel well. So I'm gonna have to get some fiber fill like in there, and I detected a low spot here and there, and we're gonna get those addressed, and hopefully the bumper will be all 100% ready to go for primer by the time next video, and then I'll start working the hood to the same quality as the bumper. I know it was a long video. If you happen to watch the whole thing and enjoyed it to the end, drop me a comment, let me know. I'd like to hear from you. Hope you found the tips useful and enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching.